Good evening. The Ten Commandments, the fifth commandment, honor thy father and mother, will be starting at 8 p.m. So hang in there.
Changing society is only possible with the right tools, and these athletes are ready to change the game. Paul, kijk daar.
Finish and then I'll come back.
Okay. You can't find the Untitled on my phone.
Just switch off your phone. It's on the iPad. Just stop it on your phone. Just go off. You're still on. Just leave meeting, Doc.
Watch it. Literally two going on at the same time.
Zoe, my Antonio was Joe Bartley because he actually cannot believe it. I can't use that with something.
This is Goldman about the Ten Commandments. And that one is inspired by Jewish history.
I'm watching it. Oh,
I'll see. Maybe out of the corner of my eye.
well, can I watch it?
Yeah.
We're on the threshold of identifying a treatment that is going to be effective forever. We're coming. We're coming. We're coming.
Are you there, Bluey?
Who's that? Arnold, how's it, my boy?
Oh, yeah, Yitzchak, yeah.
Can't see you.
How's it going, my boy?
Right, and you?
Thank God.
Israel, good.
Baruch Hashem. Unbelievable to be with our children that we haven't seen for 18 months. It's amazing.
Wonderful.
Hawkins.
They're really gone.
Yeah, she's tuned in from America, from Israel.
Can't see you, Arnold. I don't know where you are.
I'm in the top left-hand corner, no photograph.
Okay.
Eating 7 meals a day and doing no exercise. I can't afford to put my picture.
They might interfere with each other. The two webinars, the sound.
Where were you when I came up? The kids were saying, where were you? Upstairs. And you're trying to shirt.
Relations between South Africa and Malawi strains is actually very
Got a new glass for me.
and I have not
Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome.
Evening, Rabbi.
Thank you for joining us. We have participants even in Israel.
Which one to send it? So, you want to watch this or this?
Okay, if you, I can keep you
Also.
unmuted. If you can keep it quiet in your environments. If not, then I have to mute everybody. I'm afraid not. We have another request already before you. I've asked you many times, don't wait until the lecture begins. Speak to me in advance. I already have somebody who booked it in advance. Sorry. Okay, I'm going to have to mute people. I'm sorry. I'll unmute you later for questions. Not everybody knows how to use this. Okay, now I can hear myself. I hope you can all hear me. You can wave or nod your head affirmatively. Yeah, thank you. All right, so we got a lot to go through tonight. We're only going to do one commandment. We don't have 10 weeks to go through this because the holidays are coming. But number 5, Kabed Asovicha Vesimecha, honor your father and mother, is got a lot of material to get through. So we're only going to do that this evening. And we will see the second tablet with the next 5 commandments. Will go quicker, I'm sure. So we'll do a few a night. Either we'll get through it in 2 weeks or maximum 3 weeks. So latest will be early December, but maybe we can even get through it before the holidays begin, the school holidays. Okay, good evening. Thank you for joining us. One and all, tonight's shir is Le'ilui Nishmas in loving memory of Leah Bas Menachem Mendel. That's Clive Scher's late mom. And the yard site is tonight and tomorrow, Rosh Chodesh Kislev. Clive, we wish you long life. May her neshama have an aliyah. Kabed Asovicha Vesimecha, if you have the Chumash, if you'd like to follow in the Art Scroll Chumash, if you have one handy. Again, it's not obligatory, but if you'd like to, it's on page 410 in the Art Scroll Chumash, the Exodus version. So the first 4 commandments that we've done until now were believing in God, not serving idols, or not giving any deference to any other God or any alleged God, not to take God's name in vain, and Shabbos. And now you all know that we speak of the 2 tablets, each of which has 5 commandments. And the first one is Ben Adam la Makom, between man and God. And the second one is Ben Adam la Chavero, between one person and another. So the question is, why does honor your father and mother, which is a person-to-person relationship, appear on the first tablet together with all the man-to-God responsibilities? And the answer is that honoring parents is a bridge and a link between the 2 tablets, between our responsibilities to Hashem and our responsibilities to our fellow men and women in this world, because our parents are partners with God in creation and in having created us. Rabbis say, Shloisha Shutfin Ba'odam. There are 3 partners in the creation of every human being. The obvious ones are father and mother, but who gives the power of creativity? God alone is the creator. If God does not give a man and woman the power of creativity, then unfortunately it's not going to happen. We know many people never suffer infertility. May they be helped, please God. So we clearly need the third partner, the silent partner, which is Hashem, in the creation of any child. And so when we honor our parents, Hashem says he too is honored because he's involved in that partnership with father and mother in the creation of their children. Now, in the second version of the Ten Commandments, which occurs in Deuteronomy and Devorim Pashas Voschanan, I did tell you previously that there are certain minor variations between the second set of the Ten Commandments and this one. One of them is, actually two of them are here in this fifth commandment, of which one is the words Kashet Tzivcha Hashem Elokecha are added in the Deuteronomy version in Voschanan. Honor your father and mother, so that your days may be lengthened upon the land which Hashem your God gives you. That's what it says here in Exodus in the original version, but in the repetition in Deuteronomy, it adds Kashet Tzivcha Hashem Elokecha, as Hashem your God has commanded you. What does that mean? So Hashem says, as I have commanded you about my honor in the first four commandments, I am Hashem, your God, have no other gods in my presence, etc. The first four commandments were all in honor of God, including last week's Shabbos, is also to honor God, to recognize that He is the creator and the master of the universe. As Hashem commanded you means, as I've commanded you about my honor in the first four commandments, so I now command you about the honor due to your parents who joined me, who partnered with me in creating you. Now there's a long Gemara in Kiddushin, page 30, 31, and lots of stories about the mitzvah of honoring parents there. One of them says that when Rav Yosef, one of the Talmudic sages, heard his mother approaching, he said, "Let me arise before the Shekhinah, the divine presence." He equated his mother's presence with the divine presence. So you see that God and parents are part and parcel of this partnership. Now, why should we honor our parents? What have they done for me lately, eh? So the Sefer HaChinuch, which goes through all the 613 commandments and gives the laws and attempts to find reasons and background and rational ideas behind every mitzvah where possible, says there's a very simple answer. We should honor our parents, one word, gratitude. They brought you into this world. They looked after you. They fed you. They clothed you. They educated you. They paid these exorbitant school fees to get you an education. They paid for your overseas trips. They sent you to Machaneh. They even gave you a gap year where you traipsed around Europe or something, you know. They paid for your wedding. You know how much your wedding cost? Do you have any appreciation? Most brides and grooms have no clue what their parents pay for a wedding. You know, there's a Jewish comedian, he goes through this thing that how the big simcha, the wedding, you know, the colors beaming and radiant. You know, the poor father of the bride is sitting there, he's krechzing, he's wearing his bank, how's he going to pay for this? The point is that parents do an incredible amount for their children. They even bailed you out of jail when you got drunk and you did something stupid when you were a youngster. Remember that one? And they give you unconditional love all the time. And who do you turn to when you're in trouble, even when you're older? You go to your parents at the end of the day. So to be ungrateful for all that parents have done for us would be a terrible flaw and a terrible personality trait. Furthermore, the rabbis say that gratitude to parents is a stepping stone to feeling gratitude to God. And it should be motivated out of genuine sincerity, not ulterior motives. What is an ulterior motive that a child might honor their parents? Have you heard of the word Yerusha? Yerusha is the estate, the will. They want to make sure they're in the will, so they'll be nice. Do they really care? Well, we hope so. So therefore, he says to get into the will is not a good reason to honor your parents. That's an ulterior motive. We shouldn't even do it for sentimental reasons of love and good relationships and all that. That's natural, that's logical, and that's pretty spontaneous and natural. But there should be a rationale why we should push ourselves to do this mitzvah to the nth degree and to the greatest degree possible. And that is because it's a mitzvah. It's one of the 613 commandments, and it's even one of the 10 commandments. It's mandatory. Now, the Torah does not say, thou shalt love your father and mother. Nowhere in the Torah have I found that it says you have to love your parents. Now, naturally, in healthy families, we do love our parents, and they love us unconditionally. But sometimes there are, unfortunately, issues between parents and children. It happens all too often. Sometimes families are somewhat dysfunctional, which unfortunately also happens all too often. And at the end of the day, even if we cannot bring ourselves to love because they didn't toilet train me properly, or they were terrible parents, they didn't know how to deal with my issues in my adolescence, they weren't sensitive to me, etc., etc. If you can't bring yourself to love your parents, it's still a mitzvah of the Torah, one of the 10 commandments, and therefore you have to do it, even if they were lousy parents, even if it was dysfunctional, it's still a mitzvah. And the mitzvah is not dependent on how good they were to you, or how much they spent on you, or how many nappies they changed for you when you were growing up, but it's an objective mitzvah for everybody. Now, I need to say this because throughout my years of a communal rabbi, I have had some exceptional circumstances where I had to get involved in family feuds, faribbles, and very often it happens around a simcha. Yeah, there's a bar mitzvah, there's a bat mitzvah. More often than not, there's a wedding, and very often it happens, sadly, when there's been a divorce, and sometimes one of the parents is estranged from the children. Usually more, again, the law of averages, the mother gets custody usually, and the father is sometimes an absentee father, or he moved overseas, or whatever it is. And we should obviously, even if there's a divorce, it should still be amicable, ideally, and we should still be able to talk to each other, and we should certainly still be able to talk to our kids and have relationships with everybody. But it doesn't always work. We know that. It's a fact. It's a sad reality that very often it doesn't work. So over the years, I've had on more than one occasion to have to counsel children who are getting married that it'd be only correct that they should invite their biological parent, who might have been somewhat estranged over the years after a divorce, to invite them to their wedding. And sometimes I've had requests from the estranged parent begging me to intercede on their behalf that they should be able to be at the wedding. And sometimes the children are very angry at the father, and he was an absentee father, and he didn't care, and he didn't show love, and he didn't support them. And he hasn't done anything for me for 20 years. Why should I invite him? I'm not having him give me away and all that. Okay, you don't have to have him give him away, but let him be there. Let him have some nachas. Maybe this can be the beginning of a restoration of the relationship. And you might kick yourself that you didn't use this as an opportunity, as a springboard, as a catalyst for change. It might actually help the situation. You could be, many people who've had fallouts make up and they live happily ever after. So why not give it a chance? But also there's a mitzvah. It's not just logic, and it's not just to be nice. It's actually a mitzvah to honor and respect our father and mother. And that's our biological father and mother. And it does not say you have to love them. It says you have to honor them and respect them. And if they'd like to come to your wedding, you should accommodate them. So it's not easy, and I appreciate all the difficulties, and it's many years. I'm not making any blanket sweeping statements, but generally speaking, I would say it is a mitzvah, and it's a mitzvah on the children to honor and respect the parents. It is not a mitzvah. Maybe Dr. Spock and all the psychologists will tell you that parents should respect their children, and yes, they should. I agree. It should be a two-way street, mutual respect. But halachically, the mitzvah is for children to honor parents. It does not say in the Ten Commandments, honor your son and daughter. It says honor your father and mother. And therefore, there is a greater responsibility on children to honor parents than on parents to honor children. A wise parent will honor and respect their child and their child's wishes and not be overbearing on them, and will be there for them and support them and all that. But if something goes wrong, there's still a responsibility, a Torah responsibility on children to honor their parents. God forbid they die. If they're your biological parent, you're going to be obligated to tear your shirt and to say Shiva and to say Kaddish and all of that. So why do you have to wait until Shiva? Rather enjoy it at a simcha. Now, there's an old Yiddish proverb that one mother can look after 11 children, but 11 children can't look after one mother. It's an old Yiddish proverb which has a lot of truth, like most Yiddish proverbs. There's a lot of truth in there. Why is it? You ever think about that? Why should it be like that? Why is it? Shouldn't it be an equal playing field? Why do parents look after children more than children look after parents? So I once saw an interesting commentary. It says it goes back all the way to the very beginning of creation, to the very first human beings on earth, Adam and Eve, Adam and Chava. You all know that Adam was the happiest person in history, right? Because he had no mother-in-law. But that's not what we're talking about now. Now we're saying that Adam and Eve had no parents, but they did have children. So they had a natural love for their children, but they did not possess a natural love for parents because they didn't have parents. God created them single-handedly. And this has been passed on down the generations genealogically in our DNA, all the way back to the first man and woman who had more of a love for children than for parents because they simply didn't have any parents. And that's a rational explanation why it is that one mother can look after 11 children, and 11 children can't look after one mother. I thought that was quite fascinating. Okay, let's move on. Now, kabed, the word kabed, the Hebrew, means honor, from kavod, not covid, kavod. Honor your father and mother. In Vayikra and Leviticus, Parshas Kedoshim in the beginning, Leviticus 19, verse 3, there is another verse that speaks about respecting parents. Not honoring, but respecting. It says, Ish imo ve'aviv tira'u. Every person, their mother and father, they should respect. They should revere. Tira'u literally means they should fear, but I always translate fear as respect. It doesn't mean cower in the corner and be intimidated that the father's going to donor you or something. That's not what we mean. We mean respect, reverence even, to hold them in awe. So kabed, to honor, is interpreted as to serve them, to feed them, to help them, to look after them. When they get older and they need your help, to drive them to their doctor's appointments and to the pharmacy and wherever else. Respecting parents is a whole list of different obligations. Not honor, but respect. Did you know that if your father or mother have a designated seat at the dining room table or the kitchen table that is dad's seat or mom's seat, that a child is not allowed to sit in that chair without the express permission and blessing of their parent? That's part of respect. Many people, well, not many, but I know people who, when their parent walks into the room, they rise, they stand in respect. Yeah, the rabbi walks down the aisle in shul, people stand up, or at least in the older generation, they used to. You're supposed to rise for your parents. Not everybody does that, we're very comfortable and very Hamish, but that's what it says in the books. You're not allowed to sit in their designated seat. You're not allowed to contradict your parents. You may have a discussion and a debate, and you may even disagree, but it has to be respectfully. In the Talmud and in the commentaries, we have fathers and sons who disagreed on the interpretation of the law. Rashi had more than one grandson who disagreed with their illustrious Zayda in their commentaries. That's fine. But to contradict and to be dismissive of what your parent says, that is forbidden. That is considered disrespectful. I remember once we were having a conversation around the table, and one of my kids, who was then a teenager, I said something, and she obviously disagreed, and she said, "Rubbish!" Right? We often say that if we disagree, "Rubbish!" So I very, very patiently told them that you're entitled to disagree, but halachically you shouldn't say that what your parent says is rubbish. It might be rubbish. I'm sure I speak rubbish from time to time, but a kid is not supposed to say that the parent is talking rubbish, even if they are talking rubbish. Now, something which is a new phenomenon in recent years, which I've seen too often, is people calling their parents by their first names. It is expressly forbidden in the Shulchan Aruch, in the Code of Jewish Law. It states explicitly you're not allowed to call your parent by their first name. Doesn't mean you have to call them Rabbi Goldman. You can say Abba, Tati, Dad, Father, Mom, whatever you want to say. Should be respectful. But you should not call them by their first names. Even if there's someone else in the room who has the same name as your father or mother, you should not call them by their name, because it looks like you're calling your father or mother by their first name. That's how far this law goes. So it's something which is a new phenomenon in our generation, that I see people calling their parents by their first names. And I think we should try and educate people that that's not the correct traditional thing to do. And it's expressly forbidden in the Code of Jewish Law. In fact, you are actually supposed to obey your parents' wishes. So if they send you to the shop, you're supposed to go. And if they tell you to do something, you're supposed to listen. What if they tell you to marry someone you don't love? You have to listen. What if they tell you to go to a school and you're not enjoying it, and you can't study there? What if you want to go on Aliyah and your parents say no? Those are the three exceptions I've just given you where you're not obligated to listen to your parent. You're not obligated to listen about your choice of marriage partner. You may choose yourself. You're not obligated. You can choose to go study Torah at a different yeshiva or seminary that your parents choose, because it has to do with where you feel you can succeed most. And going on Aliyah, going to Israel, is something that overrides also a parent's objections. So those are some notable exceptions when you're not obligated. But on ordinary stuff, you're actually supposed to listen to what your parents ask you to do. I would add that even though you're allowed to choose your own marriage partner and you don't have to listen to your parents, I have, again, in my career, seen quite a few situations where children got involved with a guy or a girl that the parents did not approve of, and they begged the child not to pursue the relationship, and the kid was infatuated, and the kid did not listen to the parent, and the kid married that person, and in the end, the parent was right. And it did not turn out well, and there was a divorce and unhappiness. And had they listened to their parents, who sometimes see the wood from the trees better than infatuated youngsters, I know I'm sounding like an old fogey now, but from experience, again, I'm telling you that I have seen that children would be wise to listen to the counsel of their parents, even if they're not obligated halachically to listen. They would be wise to listen and to consider and take into serious consideration what the parents have learned, because often we are very, very biased, and we lose our sense of objectivity. You know, love is blind, right? And sometimes we're blind to some realities which the parents see, and they're trying to help us. And so we should listen. You're not obligated. You can make your own choice of marriage partner, but I'm just recommending that it would be a good idea to hear out what your parents have to say and be wary. Now, so when it comes to the fifth commandment, it says, "Kabed et avicha v'et imecha," honor your father and mother. Who comes first? Father. In Leviticus, in Kedoshim, Vayikra, where it says, "Ish imo v'aviv tiro," everyone should respect their mother and father. It says, "Imo v'aviv," mother comes first. So why is it that by honor, the Torah lists the father first, and by respect, the Torah lists the mother first? And there's a very logical answer to that question. And the answer is that naturally, who do we tend to give more honor to? Our mothers. Who do we tend to respect more, to be a little bit afraid of? Our fathers, right? Kid is acting up, and the mother says, "You just wait till dad gets home tonight." Yeah. So we know who's the disciplinarian over here, right? Who are they afraid of? Who do they respect more? The father, usually. Of course, there are exceptions, but I'm making a generalization, which I think is a true generalization, although there are exceptions. So therefore, the Torah has to tell us, when it comes to honor, where we naturally tend to give more honor to our mother than our father. So the Torah says father first. Don't forget about your father when it comes to honor. And when it comes to respect, it tells the mother first. Don't forget about your mother. You have to respect your mother also. Okay.
No.
Now, the word kabed, I said, is related to kavod, which means honor. But there's another word, koved, kov bet dalid, which means heavy. Kaved means heavy. So this is considered quite a weighty mitzvah to honor our parents. In fact, there is an opinion, I think it is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai of Lag BaOmer fame is the one who said that this, in his opinion, honoring parents is the single most difficult command. Now, you can understand maybe if you're a teenager, then to honor and respect your parents who want you to do everything differently is not easy. You can also understand if your parents are older and not well, or God forbid a million times suffering from dementia or Alzheimer's, it's very, very difficult. But generally speaking, why would Rabbi Shimon say that this is the most difficult commandment? And the answer is, and I've actually debated this because I wrote an article, and it's in my book, that the 10th commandment, in my opinion, was the most difficult, not to covet, not to want what someone else has. I thought that's most difficult. But Rabbi Shimon says honoring your parents is most difficult. Why? Because as much as you will do for them, it's never enough. Not because they are demanding, but because God is demanding. And the sky's the limit, as I'll soon give you some halachas now. So how far do you have to go? I'll give you a few halachas now from the Rambam. Okay, this is Jewish law, not philosophy, it's not theory, it's the law, it's the halacha of how far you have to go to honor and respect your parents, and it's very extreme. I'm warning you. Make sure you're sitting down for these next few lines. And then you'll see why Rabbi Shimon said it might be the most difficult commandment of all. The Rambam says, even if your father took your wallet out of your pocket, and in that wallet you had 25 gold coins, 25 Kruger rands. Gary, what's the Kruger rand today? 2,000 US dollars or something. And he took this wallet with 25 Kruger rands and threw it into the sea in some fit of rage or mishigas. What should your reaction be? At $2,000, what is that, like a $500,000 rand or something? What is it? 15 and a half to the dollar. Well, it's a 30. What? I can't think so much. 35,000, 40,000 rand a shot. So he threw away 500,000 rand into the sea. It's irretrievable. It's gone. Says the Rambam, you're not allowed to get angry at him for doing that crazy thing. You're not allowed to put him to shame. You have to accept that mishigas, that crazy behavior that your father is guilty of. You have to accept it in silence. Now, is that not the most difficult commandment? That's heck of a difficult by me. On the other side, conversely, when it comes to respect, something similar. So let's say, okay, I'm giving an example, I'm paraphrasing the Rambam. Let's say you're the mayor of Johannesburg, okay? Unlikely any of you here tonight will ever be the mayor of Johannesburg. Once upon a time, we had Jewish mayors. I knew quite a few of them. And you're sitting in the council chambers in Bromfontein in the Civic Center, and you're conducting a meeting of the city council. And you're there bedecked in your glorious crimson robes with this beautiful gold mayoral chain around your neck, and you look like God's gift to mankind. And your mother or your father breaks into the meeting, gate crashes the meeting, runs up to the mayor, who's her Zunila, her son, grabs the gold chain, throws it on the floor, tears his robe into pieces, spits in his face, gives him a smack across the face. Can you imagine the shame and the embarrassment of this mayor? It's hard to think of anything more embarrassing. Says the Rambam, you have to take a shtum powder. Those are not the Rambam's words, but that's more or less what he says. You're not allowed to react. You have to accept it in silence. Now, God forbid a parent has dementia, Alzheimer's, God forbid, or they're too ill to be looked after by you. We said you have to take them, you have to help them. That's part of honoring them. What if it becomes impossible because of their health condition has deteriorated so much, as unfortunately we see happening all too often in society today. So the halacha then allows us to hand over the mitzvah. You hire a carer. If you need a 24-hour care, so be it. You have to pay, or get the medical aid to pay. If not, you're going to have to pay. So you don't have to do it yourself, but you have to see to it that they should be looked after and cared. And if sometimes a carer cannot do it and they have to be institutionalized and go into an aged institution of some kind or another, then you're allowed to. But ideally, the first prize would be that children should look after their elderly parents themselves. I'm sure some of you heard me say it over the years that when my grandmother passed away, my mother's mother, of course, my father had no family surviving the Holocaust, but my mother had her parents in America. They came before the war. So I was 7 years old when my grandmother passed away. And my mother was the only daughter. She had 3 brothers. So my grandfather came to live with us. And he and I shared a bedroom. And he was a very good Jew with a long white beard, and he was a shoichet, and he was a gabbai in the Rebbe Shul, and he was a big chassid. And sometimes he was cantankerous, as elderly people sometimes can be. But generally speaking, it was amazing. It was wonderful to have him. And even though it might have cramped my style that I had a roommate who was much older than me and on a different level, I wanted to listen to the baseball game, and that's certainly not what he was into. But he had a profound influence on me and on my siblings for the good. I can say categorically, I'm sure I would never be a rabbi if not for my grandfather's influence. Not that he pushed me, not that he preached at me, not at all. He never said anything, never asked me to do anything. Sometimes he asked me to help him cut his toenails because he couldn't get down there. But he never preached at me, didn't tell me to go to yeshiva to be a rabbi, But I wanted to give him nachas. I didn't want to disappoint him. So I went to yeshiva, and the rest is history. So I think that there's a lot to be said for having grandparents at home with children. Yes, of course, it's difficult. And my father, Olav Shalom, honored his father-in-law tremendously. He invited him and insisted that he should sit at the head of the table. In the dining room, every Shabbos, Yontif, my Zayda sat at the head of the table in my father's house. He gave him to sit at the head of the table. And my uncles, my grandfather's children, my mother's brothers were eternally grateful to my father, how he treated his father-in-law, their father. Now, if you look at the text, there's something very notable about this mitzvah. It's one of the only mitzvahs in the whole Torah where it says that the reward for this mitzvah, leman yarichun yomecha, that you will live long lives. You will be blessed with a long life. Honor your father and mother so that you may live a long life upon the land which Hashem your God gives you. It's explicit, a blessing, a reward for this mitzvah of long life. Now, one of the commentaries says, if you look in the text, it says, Laman ya'arichun. It could say yarichu, but it has a nun at the end, yarichun, a long nun, final nun. And he says, the nun seems to be superfluous. It wasn't really necessary. So he said it's like reinforces the plural, that you will live long. Why is there a nun? Because it means you and them, the children and the parents, will both live long. You will live long for observing the mitzvah of honoring your parents, and your parents will also live long. So there's a variety of commentaries as to why that is. So one is that your parents will be so grateful to you because you're looking after them so nicely, so beautifully, that they will pray for you to be blessed with a long life, and their prayers may have a good chance of success. Others say, no, it's very practical. If you will look after your parents nicely, your children will learn from you that that's the right thing to do. And when you get older and you need looking after, your children will look after you like you look after your parents. So you'll be able to have a longer, happier, healthier life because you have kids looking after you. You won't be abandoned in Hillbrow or something. You'll be looked after, and they'll look after your health, and you'll be able to live longer. Now the Ramban Nachmanides, he says that parental honor and respect strengthens the fabric of society in general, not just of the family, but of the whole of society, because family by family creates a community, creates a society. By promoting a stable society through having healthy families, we earn the blessing to enjoy that society for many more years to come. And Al-Bad, one of the commentaries says, passing on the values of respect and honor of parents and grandparents down the generational line to our children, to our grandchildren, guarantees a wholesome world and guarantees and safeguards that the Jewish people should remain anchored to its roots. Traditional values often are based on Torah values. The more we sever our connection to the past, the more we're going to embrace the crazy values of today. The more we keep our connection to previous generations, the more likely we will be to hang on to the values of yesteryear, which I think we all would admit were not just racial and prejudicial, but they were a higher level of values, of love and respect and decency. We seem to have been deteriorating in recent years from those general good, wholesome values of life. Okay, to conclude, in Devarim, in the second version, it also adds something else. It says, Uleman yitavloch, that's Leman yerichon yomecha, your life will be lengthened, Uleman yitavloch, and it will be good for you. So the question is asked, why doesn't it say that it will be good for you here in Exodus, in the first version of the original story of the Ten Commandments? It says you'll have long life, but it doesn't say that phrase, it'll be good for you. So I saw the Gemara says in Baba Kama, because God knew that the first tablets were destined to be shattered. When Moshe came down the mountain holding the two tablets with the Ten Commandments, and he saw the golden calf spectacle, he threw the tablets down and they shattered into smithereens. Hashem knew that that would happen. And therefore he was worried that the people might become disillusioned and even devastated that this blessing, that it'll be good for you, has now been shattered. And therefore he saved it for the second set of tablets that Moshe made, which endured. That's why it's only in Devarim, which is the text of the second tablets, rather than in Exodus here. Okay, there's a lot more to talk about, but we've been doing 45 minutes, so I'm gonna say that you are welcome to unmute yourselves and ask any questions.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, Marion has a question. Isn't that it's only the Hebrew name? Are you talking about not calling your parents by their first names? Is that what you're referring to, Marion?
Who's Marion?
Where's Marion? Are you still there?
Marion 6.
I'm assuming that that's what Marion means, that she's commenting. Yes, she answered, thank you. Okay, well, I don't know. In the old, when the Shulchan Aruch was written, there were only Hebrew names. But I still don't think it's appropriate to call your parent even by their English name. You know, especially if that's the way everybody refers to them. I would say it's not appropriate to call parents by the first name, even the English name. That's my opinion.
Rabbi?
Questions,
Sorry,
comments?
Rabbi?
Yes.
Rabbi, you say honor nifted now, so you honor them with other ways like learning and giving tzedakah.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. That's a good point. How do you honor your parents after they passed on?
Yeah, like both my parents are gone now, so how would I?
That's a very good question. So first of all, we say Kaddish. We observe a yard site. We observe Yisker. We can study Mishnayos in their memory. We can give tzedakah in their memory. And we can behave in the way that would give them nachas watching the way we behave. Those are all ways in which we can honor our parents even after they've passed.
A tombstone and dedicating books and that for him, and
all those things are nice ideas. Okay. Any other questions? Feel free. Okay. So next week, guys, murder, adultery. All the fun stuff starts next week.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Right, all. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Not Rabbi.
Very welcome. Good night.
Thank you, Rabbi. Good night.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you.
Good night, all. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Rabbi.
Thanks, Rabbi.
Yeah, I'm ending the meeting. Cheers. Bye.
Thank you, Rebbe.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Rabbi.